Alrighty guys, so we're off into part number 4 now, and we said we would pick it up where it says nice up here at the top. So let's go ahead and get started in this one. It says here that last week the infernal bastards, the Rothschilds, filed a claim and on abandonment against our entire nation, claiming that we no longer exist as a sovereign nation because we haven't been heard from in 150 years. They further claimed that we are no longer a sovereign nation because we allegedly don't have a national currency in circulation. And again, allegedly. Nevertheless, understand that they're doing the same thing that they have always done, but this time they're doing it on a national level. Instead of declaring you dead, now they're saying the nation is dead and unaccounted for. Okay, now all of a sudden no one's heard from the United States of America, and so the presumption is she's a dead entity, lost at sea. Okay, so now they're doing it on a massive, grand scale. Okay, so let's continue. It says here, we had to file a declaration of joint sovereignty and 2 new sets of sovereign letter patent to rebut their unending presumptions before the UN Trust Committee, North America, and the UN Security Council. The fact is that we are sovereigns in joint tenancy. If we don't attend to our business in 100 years, it's still our business. If we don't call a continental convention in 200 years, that's our business. You know, we do what we want to do. We are a sovereign people. And we are not obligated to have a national currency in circulation, even though we do. It's the same trick they are trying to pull, only on a much larger scale, claiming that our whole nation is effectively, quote, missing, presumed lost, end quote, and that our estate is, quote, abandoned, end quote, ready for the taking by secondary beneficiaries and creditors. That's what the banks and their buddy, the lawyers, and their flunkies, the politicians you elected in good faith, had planned for you. That's what Wells Fargo Bank, which is not a bank, it's a securities investment corporation, using the trademark name Wells Fargo Bank to pretend that it's a bank, has been trying to promote this past week. And no wonder. It is partially owned and operated by the U.S. Attorney General. And now, let's make it perfectly clear. General Dunsford, you are responsible for providing for the security of the American people. You receive your paycheck, directly or indirectly, from funds and credit obtained from us. Actually, they are paid by the IMF, the Rothschilds. Even if it is now in the hands of pirates and brigands and those who have colluded with them as false trustees. These evil men and women would like to start a civil war in America. That has been and still continues to be their goal, guys, because they make their money off of conflict. In preparation for trying to incite an uprising, that is a race war or war of any kind, so they're going to, and we're seeing that today, guys, that they played that race card, they played all the different cards, now they're in the recession card, but that's even failing them as the market just keeps getting better. But anyway, a race war or war of any kind. Among the peaceful American people, these criminals have armed corporate subcontractors that are operating under names designed to make people assume they are lawful units of government. The BATF, the FE, the FEMA, IRS, DHS, FBI, CIA, local, quote, sheriffs, end quote, who are nothing but shields, working in private corporate offices, not sheriffs occupying public offices on the land at all, and have armed these private commercial mercenaries with billions of rounds of ammunition and tactical weapons. For what purpose? Now, stepping out of the whole thing for a minute with the side note. They don't know that Postmaster General Russell J. Gould is their new postmaster, and they do not know that they are being used to destroy their own nation. This is the potential civil war that I am trying to stop with the information contained within this report. So the situation that is going on here is that these sheriffs and these players don't understand what's going on. They don't realize that they themselves are being used to destroy their own nation. See, the thing is, guys, that these police officers, these sheriffs, and these people that are in these places of authority don't realize that they are not in public office like they think they are. They are working for a corporation, and a corporation cannot be take on a position of public office because you have to be a physical living soul, and a corporation is a piece of paper. It's just a piece of paper. When you sue a corporation, you're suing a piece of paper, articles of, I forgot what it's called, but anyway, where they create the corporation. That corporation doesn't exist. It's simply a piece of paper. It cannot sit in the position of an office on the land. It takes a living soul to do that. Someone with the breath of life in them. They are literally just as programmed as anybody else, and they don't see what they're doing, and they can't see that they're destroying themselves, nor do they understand the Postmaster General position, the most important position in the land, even though people always have been programmed to think that it is the Commander-in-Chief that is the most important. It is the Postmaster General, because that is the office through which all commerce is done. It's what enables you to interact with the other nations of the earth, and so forth and so on. Okay, it is the most critical, and they do not even understand that office exists, number one. Number two, they don't understand that you have a living soul in that office now, not a corporation, a fiction of the British crown. And so if you're a police officer or you're a sheriff or anything of that nature and you're watching this video, just understand that you are working for a corporation. You're not occupying an office on the land. If you were, you wouldn't have quotas and all these other kind of things going on in any way, form, or fashion. You wouldn't be there for profit. You're there to keep the peace. But nevertheless, again, I'm trying to stress the point, the same thing that he's trying to stress here, is that we have a potential civil war, because as this shifts over to reality, these people are taught certain things and they believe certain things, just like we were taught things and believe certain things, and none of it is even true, and so there's a potential for a civil war to break out. Okay, and the hope is that everyone gets educated in reality so that when things begin to shift over, there is no conflict on the land. The goal is always going to be peace, to do things peacefully. The deep state, the cabal, the children of the wicked one, they want war. They want division. They want separation. They want all these different things to create conflict and fear and all sorts of other things so they can maintain control. But what he's trying to do here as Postmaster General is to stop a potential civil war in stating the facts as they are, and that is that none of these police officers have any clue of the truth, just like we had absolutely no clue of the truth until you research it out and get educated in the truth, because the truth is not taught to people. If you teach the truth, they lose control. That's the problem. That's why they're scared to death of a great awakening, especially an earth-wide awakening. That scares the heck out of them, because there's a whole lot more of us than there are of them, and the things that they have did are treasonous to many nations. Not only that, they're a satanic, worldwide, earthwide cult, and they're doing child sacrifice. They're abducting people. All these things that are going on in the background, which are so wicked and so disturbing, that people are going to have a hard time and a difficult time comprehending and accepting it, and they're going to need the help of the people that understand it to give them comfort and understanding why these babies are being eaten and all this cannibalism and all these things are going on. So again, these sheriffs do not occupy the office of the land. They are in a corporation. And hopefully, if you're watching this as a police officer or as a sheriff, you'll see what I'm trying to say to you, and what he's trying to bring out to you is that, look, we know that you guys are programmed. We know that you guys have no clue that you're doing wrong. But snap out of it. And if that means stepping down, step down, whatever you got to do. But understand what's taking place here, and that is that they want to rule over all of mankind in totalitarianism, with tyrant type rule. And their ultimate aim and goal is the elimination of human beings, and to get into post-humanism, where there are no human beings on the earth. There is a cloning. There are cloning centers all over the earth. There's deep underground military bases down there where people are losing their souls and being occupied by demons. There's twinning going on. It's a cloning process. Do your research on it. And I mean, do your research. Know the truth for yourself. Don't depend on me or anybody else. Get the truth for yourself. Do your research so you know what the facts are for yourself, so nobody can trick you or persuade you. Now, we're going to continue on through the article. So that the secondary creditors of a bankruptcy that we were never legitimately any part of, that is international banking cartels and foreign investors, can come in here and loot and pillage America with the assistance of commercial mercenaries brought and paid for with illegal taxes extorted from Americans by criminals pretending to be our lawful government. So again, you have these people coming in here who are themselves in trouble because they're in bankruptcies and they're in all these different processes that they're going through, and we were never any part of any of that in reality of it all. And they're trying to keep their position by continuing a fraud and continuing to extort taxes and money in all sorts of various ways. When you're talking extorting taxes, that means every time you have to register your vehicle, that's an extorted tax, because that vehicle is registered under an all capital letter name. Okay, that is a fraud. That's not you, but they've convinced you that it is you. When you go do your driver's license and have to pay that fee, again, that driver's license, all capital letter names. When you do your marriage certificate, you're getting married to the state. It's not a wedding between the two of you and God. It's between the two of you and the state. This is why they can do child support and all these other kind of things, is because you believe you're that all capital letter name, and you're under a false wedlock. I mean, hate to say it, the true wedlock is done in the scriptures. You and your wife's names are put into the scriptures, then your kids and so forth and so on. It's common law marriage. It's not under contract. It's not under the state's authority, where they can, if there's a problem between the two families, put the child with the mother and then extort even more money out of the male, and and all these other things. This is all a fraud. The real way you take care of a child when two people split up is whoever has the child at the time will provide for the child. But if that person is not capable of it, then of course the other person would help provide for the child. So if the child's in your hands, you take care of the child. Whatever it needs, you provide for the child. When it comes back to the other one, then whatever the child needs while it's in the other hands, that person takes care of it, provides everything. And then as the child because the child needs to see both parents, needs to. Okay, the CPS stuff and all that kind of stuff, that's a major fraud. That's how they're stealing children and moving it through the satanic cult system and doing all sorts of unimaginable evils. Okay, but let's get back on topic here. But they're just basically doing what they do, which is completely illegal, acting like they are the government, acting like they belong to the United States. It's all an act. It's all foreign, and it's all a fraud, and pretty much a treason. End report caveat. Then he's got these two asterisks, and he says this has been the overall family objective of the entire Royal British Crown. So there's an overall picture of their objective. Okay. Now we're going to get down here and do a long story short, and it says here, due to particular banking laws, a nation is only to be allowed 3 international bankruptcies before itself stands in a position ready to be captured and or seized, and where its nation's government is taken over by a monarch. Grasp that concept, guys, and then we'll finish this thing. We're going to read it one more time. Grasp the concept. Due to particular banking laws, a nation is only to be allowed 3 international bankruptcies before itself stands in a position ready to be captured or seized. Okay? We're talking admiralty law here. So understand the situation. A nation only gets 3 international bankruptcies. After the 3rd and final bankruptcy, it stands in a position to be captured or seized, and where its nation's government is taken over by some monarch. Okay, as we read earlier, there's a battle between Spain and France, and ultimately Great Britain conquers us. It sits in a position to be captured and seized, where its nation's government is taken over by a monarch. Now, this is the king of Great Britain, age-old system of feudalism, feudalistic warfare. Now you understand how he's operated all these years, that the monarchs and dictators of the world have used to conquer everything and everyone for eons, going all the way back to the pharaohs. Same thing over and over and over again. It's cyclical. There's nothing new under the sun. What has been shall be. What is has been. That's what your scriptures tell you. It's cyclical until you get to the end when Jesus returns. This is when unrighteousness, people of iniquity, wicked ones, all these people are eliminated, and we enter into an age of righteousness for 1,000 years before Satan is loosed yet again, for a brief time before he's basically done away with. But it's the same old system that they've used all over again. This is why when you go into Daniel's dream or Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and you see this statue, it is one solid beast system from start to finish until we get to the toes, and then this rock comes down and smotes it into 1,000,000 pieces and sets up a new kingdom, the kingdom of righteousness. It's the same exact beast system all the way through. All the way and completely through to the end. And when the Roman Empire fell, this triune or triangle formed. It's still the same beast. It was resurrected and put into the shadows and hidden away, controlling everyone and everything. And the world wondered after the beast. Didn't have a choice. All got the mark. What was the mark? Go watch my other videos. First, you have to know what the mark of God is. The mark of God is His commandments working in your life. So, between your eyes is what He said. His commandments between your eyes. His words between your eyes, in the mind, in the forehead. Okay, and it's a mark upon thy hand. That's what He said. So what's the mark of the beast? Same thing. His programming, His rules, His money, His thing. And what does the scriptures tell you? He forces all. That means everybody. And then He gives a list of every type of individual that exists. And each and every one of them are under this mark. All receive the mark. You can't buy, sell anything without using their fake, false monetary monopoly money. You can't. It's not legit in any way, form, or fashion. We're all using it, and we're all under that mark, and it's all coming to an end. Again, futurism's nonsense. Everything's coming. We haven't got there yet. We already are there. It's already happened. It's a lie. Futurism is a lie. It's in the past. But this right here is exactly how they've done it all these years, using this feudalistic warfare, in which you go, they get you into bankruptcy, and then they come in and set up their government, their corporation, with a CEO, a chief executive officer, a CFO, a chief financial officer, board of directors, and so forth and so on, and imitate the government. So in the CEO position is your commander in chief, and then your CFO, that would be the head of your federal bank or whatever. Your board of directors, you set up the board of directors to be the Congress, and you put on this illusion that you, the people, are actually still dealing with the government. And it's an illusion. There's no government at all. There is no president, no vice president, nothing. It's a corporation that came in and seized control because of bankruptcy. Now, after a nation goes through 3 bankruptcies, the whole entire process, 3 bankruptcies, then at that point, they can be seized. And that's exactly what happened. See, when their corporations went through its third and final bankruptcy, then David came in and seized the office, because they had to vacate the office because they were in their third bankruptcy. All right, let's continue with the document, guys. Let's continue. Sorry. Got off on a rabbit trail. Big rabbit trail there. Okay. Big news. 2 November 1999. Due to international banking law. Okay? International banking law. We're not dealing with any other type of law here. We're specifically international banking law, because it is the banks that are running it all. International banking law. The King of Great Britain had to legally close his post office in the District of Columbia down and vacate the trust, which is the office of the president, i.e. the contracted middleman between the United States and Great Britain. And then Congress was also closed and ended, and so was the Senate. Everything came to an end November 2nd, 1999, at the end of their third bankruptcy. And understand that under the deal that the Founding Fathers made with Great Britain, that Constitution, right, that was created, that document, the middleman was the office of president. So, continuing down here, it was officially over. The banknote contract, which was the U.S. Constitution. That's the King's government. That's what the U.S. Constitution was, the King's government. And the Bill of Rights, which was the people's protection against the King's over-intrusive government. And the Accord, which was the joinder between the two, had officially come to an end. Did you catch the education in this? The banknote was the U.S. Constitution, which was the King's government over us. Okay? And the Bill of Rights, that was our protection against the King's over-intrusive government. So they couldn't step their bounds. You see what the Founding Fathers did. They got themselves in a mess. They couldn't do commerce. So they had to make a deal with somebody, because otherwise a nation can't survive without being involved in commerce. It can't. If you can't operate commerce, how are you going to move stuff between states in your own nation? You can't. How do you move it between the colonies? You can't. So we had to go to somebody, whether it was going to be Spain or France or Great Britain. We had to do it with someone. So the Founding Fathers went and made this contract with the King of Great Britain and said, look, here's your government, the Constitution. That's the government. That's the thing that you're going to place over us. Here's our Bill of Rights to protect us against your over-intrusive government. You can't step these bounds. and the accord, the joinder between the two of those things came to an end. Okay? Over. Done. November 2nd, 1999. So why did it take 90 days for Florida, remember we were talking about this earlier, for Florida to recount the votes between Bush and Gore? The fake recount was to distract the dumbed down and uneducated masses of not only of America, but all of the people of the world. And because nothing becomes law for 90 days after your third and final bankruptcy. They had to go 90 days. They had to stall. So that the people didn't catch on, they created this illusion of a need for a recount. And it lasted exactly 90 days. Therefore, everyone needed to be distracted so as not to notice that for 90 days there was no Congress, Senate, IRS, nothing. It was all closed down. Then we got here in the brackets, managed like sheeple. So at the end of those 90 days, they announced that George Bush was appointed by GB, the IMF, World Bank, and the Vatican, not elected unbeknownst to the people, as the first president and CEO of the new corporate America. The font style, grammar, punctuation, etc. of the name, the United States of America, Inc., is the most important thing to take notice of in the changing of the name for the people's government, as the three bankruptcies had each come to an end. Now, I'm going to go back up here a little bit, and I want you to see what's happening here. So, November 2nd, 1999, this entire thing comes to an end. They're in the third and final bankruptcy. They can't do anything for 90 days. So, for 90 days, they put on this show to the public. Again, you're watching a scripted movie. They had control of it. Now we have control of it to wake people up. They were keeping people asleep and pushing an agenda that would eventually lead us to our destruction. Okay, so they go these 90 days to distract the people while the 90 days pass. Then they start a brand new corporation. It is a fraud, guys. An absolute fraud. Period. But it's a TV show, and people believe it's real, and so people need to wake up and get educated into the truth of what's going on. So they wait the 90 days, and as soon as they do, they announce that George Bush was appointed as the first president and CEO of the new corporate America. Here's the thing, though, guys. The font, style, grammar, punctuation, etc. of the name of the United States of America, Inc. Okay, so the punctuation, grammar, and style, the font style, that wording, that corporation, just because it changes between bankruptcies doesn't mean it's a new entity. It doesn't mean it's the original. It doesn't mean any of that. It is punctuation. It's still the exact same entity. It's still the feudal system. It's still taking us over. But in 1999, Gold seized control of the Postmaster General and Commander-in-Chief. Postmaster General, Judge, Commander-in-Chief. So they no longer, now when they created this final one, they are in a fraud. We occupy the seat. Let's continue here. The name was changed subtly each time to obstruct the fraud they were once again going to reinitiate against the people under what the people thought was their own government, simply because it was pronounced the same. So we're going to see here how they did this. They take it's the same name every time. So they don't realize that a new fraud has been committed with the new corporation, because the other one went into bankruptcy. Because they keep using the same pronunciation. It sounds the same, but the style's different, the capitalizations are different, and so forth and so on, as we're going to see. But, we're right here now. But, what they failed to recognize, due to a lack of awareness, that is the people, and education, was that the grammatical punctuation had been purposely changed. Let's move this up a little bit. Thereby, and unbeknown to the people, a new government had actually been created and had taken control of the government system for them, to once again use the very same system with the same sounding name to initiate another round of the same game of grammar and bank fraud. This is why syntax is important. This is why quantum syntax is important. So they're using the same name, the same sounding name, but they're changing the punctuation and the grammar and all this kind of stuff, and continuing a bank fraud. However, as we all know, anyone or thing, although sounding the same, yet spelled differently, are in fact two separate and completely different entities altogether, period. It doesn't matter if they sound the same or not. If they are spelled and punctuated differently, they're a different entity. This act of grammar and bank fraud had been conducted against this nation 3 times. And each time the spelling, that is the syntax, had been changed, as is clearly obvious under closer observation. And when you look at the 3 independent spellings of this nation, grammatical construct, each time it had changed hands, you will see what he means. And here's an example. The United States Inc., and in this one, the only capitals in the whole thing is the capital U and the capital S. And then he puts another one. The United States Inc. This sounds exactly the same as the first one. The United States Inc. But it is in fact a totally different entity, as this one is capital T in the word the, unlike the first one. So you got a capital T here and a lowercase one here. And in this one, it's all capital letters from United States on to the end, whereas this one, you only got one capital letter here, all lowercase, one capital letter here, all lowercase, and then Inc. is lowercase. It is 2 completely and utterly separate entities. Yet they sound exactly the same, and this is how they perpetuate this fraud against the American people. You still think you're dealing with the United States, your real government, and you're not. You're dealing with a TV show and a corporation with the chief executive officer, not a president and chief commander-in-chief of a nation. Now, here is where the story gets really juicy, and this is where America was set free from the tyranny in, quote, the District of Columbia. Remember, that's what everybody was put under, this district, this 10 square miles. That's where everyone's been placed. Yet it is being withheld from the whole world, from everybody. This was presidential election year on the day, November 2nd, 1999. This was the day that the International Postal Representation and all of the federal services being provided and overseen by Great Britain for the 50 territories of the Union of the Republic and the District of Columbia and its Federal Services Contract Corporation legally and lawfully ended and were dissolved. Okay? That whole corporation that had been controlling us had been legally and lawfully ended and were dissolved. What everyone is being led to believe, sheeple, that is the regular people that are under the programming, under the TV show, under the scripted movie, that they use for programming that is now being used to wake people up. So, is that on November 2nd, 1999, when the king had to vacate and close his post office in D.C., it ended all commerce on this earth between the U.S. and anyone they were contracted to conduct commerce with. And since we were still bankrupt, owing $2 trillion to the IMF or World Bank, and unable to substantiate our national independent standing with a postal contract location document, we didn't have a post office, we didn't have any way to prove or to do commerce of our own. Conducting commerce would be impossible, as it would be for any nation. Let's scroll up a little bit. So at this point, the United States of America was to be secretly surrendered back over into the hands of the King of Great Britain, as the nation was now just captured by the King's age-old system of feudalistic warfare via the IMF, World Bank, aka the Rothschilds, and all of it by grand design. Nothing new under the sun. The king is, of course, the trust, and could have paid or waived the debt off had he so chosen to do so, but the real long-range objective of his plan was to capture the country. Now, not allow it to remain free. Okay, so let me read a little more here. This is why they, his federal employees in Washington, D.C., now hang the U.S. flag pointed down in surrendered position. And this is also why you are witnessing the foreign and oppressive power of the British-run federal government, King's government, being forced down and upon and into the states to the detriment of the states themselves and the people of this once great nation. Like I said, these people still think that they're in control. Okay? They're in darkness. They can't see. They can't understand that the whole house of cards is collapsing right before their very eyes. The truth is coming out. The people are getting to know what really happened. The realities are starting to settle in. But these people can't figure it out. And they think that they're in control to the end of the end of the end. They think Lucifer's got them. They think they're good to go. They really think they are still in control. So this is why they continue to lie. This is why they continue to come up with new narratives. This is why they continue, and they will continue until the day they are arrested. This includes your news anchors, your actors on the news, your actors in Hollywood, your actors on your TV shows. These are people that are screaming. It includes Comey and Obama and Clinton, all of them. But let's go back here and understand what's being said here. The king is, of course, the trust. He could have paid. He could have just ended it all for us. But he wasn't interested in that. He was interested in watching this nation have a corporation put over him, watch that corporation go through 3 bankruptcies, and then upon the end of that 3rd bankruptcy, do the very thing that the triangle has, the 666 system has been doing, the satanic occult, has been doing to us. But this time to the nation, having gone through his 3rd bankruptcy, he was going to seize and capture the nation once and for all, eliminating our freedom once and for all. But at the 3rd bankruptcy, guess what? He had to vacate office, and he couldn't do anything for 90 days. Let's continue. And they, the empire of the 3 city-states, has secretly been behind and at the heart of the illegal takeover and surrender of this country, not only since the time it was founded, but more precisely within the last 16 years, operating openly and blatantly without fear of reprisal from anyone. They fear nothing, which is why Obama bin Laden has been recorded and heard to say, quote, "The American people need to shut up. I am a king," end quote, and continues unimpeded by anyone or any power as he drafts absolutely illegal laws in an act of fraud that literally do nothing less than bind everyone and everything under the rule of those drunken, illegal, fraudulent fiction decrees. And we're going to stop right there. Okay. Again, the 3 empire of the 3 city-states, London, Vatican, Washington, D.C., the military-industrial complex, this three-sided pyramid, secretly been behind and at the heart of the illegal takeover and surrender, the capture. That was the ultimate game, was to capture the United States and annihilate us. Okay, was this three-city empire. Those are who are behind all of this. Okay, so these mandates, or I'm sorry, these fiction decrees. So here we go. Fiction decrees that are passed off to the mundane as mandates or executive orders, as if such a thing could ever exist, or law or laws. Talk about a joke. This is why they want your guns. They fear that you will come to know the truth contained within this document and rise up against them. And that is what they fear the most. They fear the awakening more than any other thing. That's why when Trump was injected into the position of CEO of that corporation that rebuilt itself in 1999 and continued to enslave and control man with their narratives and their control of their music industry, their news broadcasts, and everything that they use, that is why they tried so desperately to take Trump out of office and get one of their own in. Because they know that if he got into office and he remained in office, he would cause an awakening. And that awakening would grow and grow until eventually the old guards, this triangle, would be utterly eliminated. And their control of the narrative would no longer exist. And the truth would be unleashed to the masses. That scares the death out of them because of what they've done to us. Alright guys, we'll read a little bit more and we'll kill this one because we're almost at an hour. Now, for the real surprise and the truth. However, despite that you are being told, or not, that this nation has been surrendered back over and into the hands of a monarch, that you are peasants, slaves, and serfs, you have no military, no country, no flag, no national standing, and therefore no authorization to exist as a nation of people, the actual and truthful fact of this entire matter is that November 2nd, 1999, when the king closed his post office in the District of Columbia down and vacated and surrendered the trust, he was backdoored by a real American who has that could have been you, it could have been me, it could have been anybody. A real American has absolute authority here. He was backdoored when he vacated that office, that post office in the District of Columbia. He was back and surrendered the trust. He was backdoored by a real American named Russell J. Gold, who had foreseen the close of the King's Post Office coming and secretly legged himself and his entire global government construct. We'll get into that later, guys, but understand that you're dealing with a quantum government that is giving the power, control of Earth to God, and in so doing, back to the people. But his entire global government construct into the now newly vacant and abandoned location as the new Postmaster General for the United States of America. So when this third and final bankruptcy came, he had to vacate the office, the post office in the District of Columbia, and surrender the trust. As soon as he did, Russell came in and seized that position of the new Postmaster General that was now vacant and abandoned by the British Crown. And now you have your real republic back. Thereby, in doing so, kept the continuance of the evidence of the post office for this nation open and in play around the world, wherewith his postal command contract location filing being recognized by every other global leader in the world. So all the global leaders have recognized the document. He then heroically stopped the illegal takeover and surrender of this great nation by disqualifying the fraudulently conveyed bankruptcy note of the IMF, and further authorized the continuity. So as he got into office, he also fully authorized the continuity of all commerce on earth between the 50 states of this nation and whomever they were contracted with beforehand, and had contracts with to continue to conduct that commerce, that is the shipments and movements of everything from money to people. Okay, so now you can still travel between the states and all these kind of things, the people can, and you can move things across the states. All that can still continue, but it's not under the control of the British Crown, who is masquerading as our government because they have been taken down since November 2nd, 1999, but they controlled the narrative, and the whole world, not just us Americans, but the whole world believes that narrative, and that there really is a government there. There is no government there. It is a corporation. It is an illusion. It's a fiction. It is a fraud. Okay? You have a CEO, not a president of the United States. You have a vice president of a corporation, not the vice president of the United States. Okay? Two totally different things. This is so powerful that it must be described in great detail to be both fully understood and appreciated, or else you will never come to grasp the full magnitude of such an all-encompassing global event that literally changed the balance of power on this entire earth, by taking it from the corrupted depots who were using it to conquer this rock in space, as he says, and placed it all of it, and I mean every last bit of it, back into the hands of God. And therefore, we the people, you, absolutely forever. It is a done deal. It has been a done deal. We were just waiting to get the right person into the CEO position of that corporation to begin the show. I'm going to read just a slight bit more, guys, because we're not at an hour yet. So I'm going to read a little bit more, but we're coming to an end. We're going to have another video for sure. Okay, so here we go. The fact is, the Declaration of Independence has never expired and is still very much in effect, just as much as it was the day that it was drafted. However, the original U.S. Constitution, now listen guys, listen very carefully to what's being said here. However, the original U.S. Constitution, it pains me to say, was a banknote and an accord, a contract, okay, struck between the 13 colonies and the King of Great Britain, whom was ultimately chosen by the founders of the Republic as the monarch that they were willing to sign an international postal contract with, rather than suffer at the hands of one of the other two, of whom they had never known the tyrannies of. The Bill of Rights is a simple defense list of the top 10 things, amongst others, that the 13 colonies made sure were clearly recognized by the king as human freedoms and or personal items, equipments that were completely out of his absolute command and or control of. It was our shield against tyranny. You see what we did? The Constitution was a contract, an accord that between the founding fathers and the King of Britain. We had to make a deal with someone to get commerce before we were literally dead in the sea and lost at sea. Okay, we had to get something done. Instead of going to the major tyrants of Spain and France, we said, no, we're going to strike a deal with Great Britain. We're going to do this thing, and we're going to let it happen. But what we're going to do, we're going to do the Constitution, which is his government. His government, okay? That's his government. But we're going to make a Bill of Rights that's going to give us our rights, where the tyranny of all these other governments cannot come upon us. That's what we did. See, we set ourselves up so that we wouldn't be under the tyranny until we came out of this thing and became a nation that could once again reign and rule in peace, in righteousness, helping other nations to recover out of the tyrants all over the earth. So we're right here. It says, and as he did not write the Bill of Rights, he therefore has no authorization, that is, no authority or standing whatsoever to question, contest, and or alter or renounce that list in any way, shape, or form, and never has. You understand the importance of the Bill of Rights. If you have not read the Bill of Rights, guys, you need to go read it, memorize it, internalize it. It is your rights. And if you don't know your rights, you have no rights. That's the law. That's a maximum law, meaning it will always be law. No matter what a tyrant does or doesn't do, whatever a government does or doesn't do, it will always be a law. If you don't know your rights, you don't have any rights. But you should have the Bill of Rights internalized. It's a very powerful, potent document that is recognized all over the earth, and it's what gives you your rights. And that your rights come from your Creator, putting God in control, not the kingdoms of this earth, which have been in control. A soldier's perspective. Guys, that's where we're going to pick it up in the next video. I don't know when it'll come out. It'll come out when it comes out. I love you guys. Get in the Word, stay in the Word, and get the Word in you. And remember that other than the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the two most important things are love and truth. And after that, peace and justice.